Hey, it's Jeff Hyman, your startup therapist, where we focus on the people part of startups. And I'm here with Lisa O'Keefe. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great. Thank you so much for making the time today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Lisa, you head up talent and culture and recruiting at a fascinating technology company called Signal, based in Chicago. In a minute, I'll ask you to describe a little about Signal and what you do there. And you have a friend here today.
This is one of my cats, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Hey.
Sam can, everyone can bring something to the discussion here, right?
Yeah.
Sam is looking for some attention, and that's totally fine. We're all looking for attention, right?
He just is really interested in how I build an engineering team.
Good, and I think our viewers will be too, so let's get right into it. So you've been with Signal from its early days. How large is the company now in terms of people?
We have almost 150 people. When I started, there were 5 of us.
Great, so
that was in May 2010.
Great,
and so it's fascinating to see how much bigger we are now.
Great. In 5 years, you've really helped build the company. And we're going to talk today about some very specific ways that you've done that. Okay. Not only are you responsible for recruiting, but you're also responsible for culture development, which of course is integral to retention of these A players that you recruit. So I think it'll be a fascinating discussion. Can you give just 30 seconds on Signal, kind of in layman's terms, what kind of category you're in and the types of people that you're typically adding to the team?
Sure. Signal is a high-growth phase tech company. Sorry about that. We're a SaaS company. We're based in the ad tech space, and the ad tech space is a very convoluted, interesting one, so I won't go too deeply into what we do. But when we're looking to hire for our engineering team, we look for people who are really wanting to solve very complex problems. Oh gosh, it's hard to focus.
No, I think it's great.
So we're trying to solve problems of scale, problems that haven't been solved before.
Got it.
And it's really challenging for us as a team to do those things, but it's also very compelling for people who might want to.
Got it. So there's some serious technology behind this.
It is.
And you're recruiting some pretty serious software engineers as a result.
We are. When we look for engineers, we typically are looking for experienced engineers who want to deal with these great problems of scale, who are really wanting to work with everyone in the company to solve problems and to create new tools.
Got it. So let's start at the highest level with a definition, which I think will be useful, which is A players. I know you're just like you are a fanatic about hiring exceptional talent. I know that you are highly selective. How do you define an A player? How do you know when you're interviewing and say, she's got it or he's got it?
I think it's different for every company, but for us, it really goes back to the early days of Signal, nay BrightTag, when Eric and I sat down and talked about how we wanted to build our team. Mike and Mark were also part of this decision. Mike Sands, our CEO, and Mark Kiven, another founder and chief revenue officer. But we talked about, first of all, what type of company we wanted to have. And we wanted to have really hard problems to solve. We wanted the freedom to solve them. And from there, we thought about, well, who's going to be a fit for us?
Yep.
And it really came down to we needed people who were super smart but kind, because you can't collaborate if you're disdainful of someone else due to the work that they're doing. And you needed to have a sense of adventure because we were creating something really new. So you could be a brilliant, kind person who is really afraid of change and invention and not be a fit for us.
So you really defined the DNA of these people.
Exactly.
Early on. Was this back when it was just the 5 of you or later?
There were 5 of us.
Got
because it was great to get to work with Eric because he and I share a lot of the same values about building a team.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go too fast and just get bodies in the door. And those first hires are just so important.
Sure. It sets the direction for the whole venture.
Yes.
So the smart piece I get, adventurous, I think I could understand how you could assess that. How do you begin to understand whether someone is kind? And how do you interview for that? How do you assess that?
Our interview process and the way we find really talented people is slightly different than other companies, and it works for us. So although my role has expanded where I'm not only head of talent and culture for the whole company, I'm still personally responsible for doing all of the engineering hiring, which is great because that's my happy place.
Yeah.
So I start off by most of our candidates are passively sourced. They're not looking for jobs. And I might look at GitHub, I might go to Twitter. I might see who's saying interesting things.
Yep.
And you really get a feel for what inspires a person technically, what type of human they might be. And then I really have to screw up my courage and write them. I know someone is right for us if I am just scared to contact them because they seem so amazing.
So you are using the written word and what this individual may be writing online, on technical websites, forums, chats, etc.
Exactly.
To say, not only do they seem intelligent, check that box, but their spoken word or written word also conveys a sense of humanity and kindness. Can you actually start to get a sense for that, or is it not until you're interviewing in front of them?
Well, it's enough to pique my curiosity and think these people might be kindred spirits to us and might be interested in the type of problems we're solving at Signal. Once I contact someone, and I try to write what companies forget is that for engineers or anyone who might be leaving their job, this is a huge decision and very personal.
Sure.
And if you treat a potential Signalite just like one of the masses or a product, that doesn't resonate with people.
Sure.
So I really try to get to know someone a little bit and just write them a very kind email telling them why I'm writing, why they might be interested in working with us, and making sure that they understand this is just a dialogue. I think a lot of companies or third-party firms in their efforts to hire very quickly forget the humanity part, and engineers just feel like something to be bought.
Well, it's a lot faster to copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. What you're describing, I'm guessing, is a more thoughtful, time-consuming approach. But you're able to engage people, as you describe, passive candidates, people that are not actively looking to make a move.
Mm-hmm. It might seem like it takes longer, but maybe I talk to 5 people and 3 move on and we end up making offers to 2.
Right.
That's not a waste of time.
It's more time up front. Is that safe to say?
There's a lot of time up front. So our hiring process, I don't know if that's something you'd like
Let's
to talk
do it.
about.
I'd love to. That was the next question.
So Eric and I, we not diverged greatly from what we started when we were teeny tiny, but the first step is I find people who might be great fits for us. Of course, I'm looking for passive candidates, but we also post jobs in a couple of places. We don't use a lot of big job boards because that's not efficient.
So you're not reliant on big job boards, and you're not reliant on outside recruiters and headhunters.
No, we've never used a third-party
recruiter. You've never used one in 5 years.
No.
You got to feel good about that, and I think that's also a testament not only to your work but also to the fact that it is possible to do this without calling in outside help unless you absolutely need it, or using the job boards, but it does take a slightly different approach. Anyway, please go on.
No, you're right, and it's different for every company, and I don't want to say what we do works for everyone or is the best way to do it, but it works for us.
Right.
Frankly, if I'm not able to hire people or if my team can't and we need to use outside recruiters, Mike Sands and Eric Lynch should probably fire us.
Yeah, sure. That's what you're paid to do.
Well, we know the company more than someone who is literally a stranger to us.
Right.
So when we're hiring for the dev team, I look for candidates who would be a great fit for us. When I post jobs, I try to talk a little bit about the great technical challenges we have. Everyone's talking about having beer and ping pong and all of those perks, but I want engineers to understand that we have some really meaty technical problems to solve and the freedom to solve them.
Right.
So once I found people that might be a fit, I schedule time to meet with them. I hate the phone. Skype is fine, but I'm really phone shy.
And so are your first meetings typically in person or video?
In person, unless the person is remote.
Oh.
Want to get to meet someone. Again, building a team and moving from your role is a really personal thing, and you're starting a possible relationship.
Yeah.
And so I want to sit and meet the person and have coffee, get to know them, talk to them about our tech stack, talk to them about our company, how we work as engineers, and hear what they're interested in, and see their eyes either light up or go dull. And the most amazing engineer in the world might really not want to work with us. And at that point, it's incumbent on me to say, you know what, you're great, but you don't want to do this. Let me help hook you up with something else.
Yeah. So you really need the visual cues, the eye contact, body language, not so much to assess just their abilities, but to assess their interest level and whether you're saying something that's resonating with them.
and to form a relationship. I mean, if I'm heading up a part of the company that is supposed to attract and retain the best people, if someone who might join us doesn't get to know me and know that I have their back as much as I have signals,
Yeah.
why would they want to come?
Yeah.
So we have a talk for about an hour.
Got it.
And by then, I know who's going to be a fit and who's not. And
Yeah.
the nice thing is we have a really direct conversation. Too many times companies, I think, want to just say, okay, we'll get in touch with you. At the end of our talk, I say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I think this could possibly be a fit.
So you give them immediate feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just being a person.
Yeah.
I don't do anything that's terribly outstanding or different, but I just know how I want to be treated and how inhuman the process often seems. So I say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Think about what you've learned today. Write me with questions. But for our next step, I'd love for you to have lunch with me and Eric.
Got it.
And Eric and I take every candidate to lunch, and we just sit and we talk.
That's always the next step.
Yeah.
Is the CTO, Eric, and you will go to, and again, invest an hour, hour and a half in lunch.
Yeah, and it's so informative, not just for us to get to learn about the person and hear what they value as people and as technologists and where they want to go, but it shows that we're very serious about building a good team. Eric Lunt has done amazing things with his career, but that he is willing to take an hour and a half to get to really make these great decisions.
Right.
It really means a lot to people who might join us.
I'm guessing the tone of that lunch is more a conversation than an interview.
Totally. And if we can't sit and have a great meal together and talk about some of the things that we're geeking out over technically or what means a lot to us at work, then we're probably not a fit. So, and again, Eric and I we always want to make sure the candidate knows this is a two-way thing.
Yeah.
I think too often people who are hiring just say, we want to hire you without even knowing the person.
Right.
And it makes them feel very put on the spot. So we make sure it's a two-way decision.
Well, it's no different than online dating, right? You're not going to go from dating to propose or from meeting to proposing, right? There's a courting process because again, most of these candidates are not actively looking for a job. If they were, it might be a bit different.
Or if they are looking, they have a lot of options. Engineers are able to really pick and choose where they want to go.
Yeah.
If they feel pressured, if anybody feels pressured, you're not going to be fully embracing this potential opportunity.
Yeah.
You want to be given the time to do your research and get to know a company just as much as a company wants to know you.
What is the next step after that lunch? So by this point, Eric, the CTO, the hiring manager, is jazzed about this individual, as are you. Does the courting then begin, or are you now just starting to have people interview this candidate?
Well, after this, I mean, it's relationship building even more than courting. I don't know that I would be a good courter, but it's really, we've built a relationship, and by this time we at least know we have a lot in common in terms of what we want to do technically and how we like to work and the type of work-life balance we want. We know a lot of things already. So next step is to bring the person in for a half day and have them meet typically 3 sets of 2 developers to an engineer.
So these are small group interviews.
Small group interviews.
2-on-1, and you do 3 of them roughly.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so we're going through, that's when we do a lot of the technical parts of the interview.
Yeah.
We already know by now, usually Eric and I have a really good feeling for how adept this person might be,
Yeah.
but we really want to make sure every engineer who joins us is not only smart, kind, curious, and really interested in the same problems, but they have their fundamentals.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that an engineer understands how HTTP calls are made at a very deep level. We want to make sure they understand data structures and their algorithms and can solve problems. And we also want to use that time for them to ask people who aren't Eric and I questions about what it's like to work here, what they like, what the challenges are, and learn more about us.
So in those interviews, those are more competency-based interviews where they're really focusing on specific skills and experience. Is that safe to say?
So from the beginning, I'm still using behavior-based questions that don't sound like it. I've done this for a while now, so I can make it very conversational, but I'm able to understand so very much by the time we even get to Eric that when third interview comes, the engineers are wanting to really understand their technical level and then get to know them a little more as a person. But I always send out a summary before we meet a candidate, like, hey, this person's
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
Here's how we met.
Yeah.
Here's what we talked about.
Yeah.
These are things that are important for the candidate. Their resume, their cover letter, if there is one. So our team can go in fully understanding these things have been covered. If they want to ask a couple more questions about, hey, tell me about a time where you really mentored someone more junior to you than you,
Yeah.
they're able to do that. But so much has been covered for them that it can be a really relaxed, fun series of technical interviews, but then giving the candidate lots of time to ask, hey, what do you like that you're working on now?
Yeah.
What are your biggest challenges in the company? And getting to interview us as much as we're interviewing them.
So let's say those 3 interviews go great.
Yep.
It's clearly on track. Where do you go from there?
Okay, so after we interview, I try to get the team together within 12 hours to do a debrief.
In person.
In person. So I let the candidate know, hey, this is what you expect next. So often people get through all these rounds of interviews, and a company says, hey, we'll call you.
Yeah, it's a black hole.
That's horrible. I've been there. It's not okay. So I let them know this is what we're going to do. We're going to get together as a team and talk about your time with us. I will contact you when we're done, and I'll start off by email saying, hey, I have news for you. Let me know how you want to hear your news. Because people each want to communicate differently.
Oh.
So somebody might want to hear good or bad news over email, or they might want an immediate phone call.
Wow.
And so we will debrief. We'll talk about the candidate. By then we know, Eric and I know what is going to happen. And we're listening. I'm taking notes. We all tend to be on the same page at that point because we've really done a lot of upfront work to get.
But you don't skip that important step of having that debrief to put everyone's head together.
No, and you can't just ask random people, hey, how did you feel? You need to get in a room and talk. And then if somebody's like, well, I saw this, what did you notice?
Right.
We're able to have good conversations.
Right.
And then if somebody's like, well, I don't know what this person wants to do with their career, I'm like, hey, I talked about that. Let's refer to like my conversations I've had and my impressions. And so we have a really good collaborative discussion from there. I'll let the person know if we're going to make them an offer. Or if we're not going to, I'm going to say, hey, person, thank you so much for spending time with us. The day we decided not to make you an offer, these are some things you did well. These are some things that you had some problems with, and I would hate to set you up not to be entirely successful in your career at Signal. And by that time, we pretty much have an attachment to the person anyway. I'm going to do what I can to help them find a place in the Chicago tech community that's even better for them than we.
So you'll make introductions to other companies as well.
Of course, it's great that we have such just a variety of options for technologists and people who want to be working in Chicago tech today. And why not be friendly and help them go to a great company or help some other company find someone who's a wonderful match for them?
What do you suppose your close rate is? So the percentage of people that do accept an offer.
I can tell you how many people in 5 years have not accepted an offer.
Okay.
4 people have not accepted our offer in 5 years, and one of them didn't accept twice because he was never ready. So, and we have over 60 people on our dev team.
Got it. So it's a very low percentage of people that decline, but I'm guessing you're not terribly surprised at the end because you've kind of been, I'm guessing, almost test closing along the way. What concerns do you have? How are you feeling about it? So there's not a lot of surprise at the end.
There's not a lot of surprise at the end. Sometimes one person, our 4th rejection of our offer happened in August, and the candidate was a really great guy, and we were very upfront about other opportunities because I want people to explore other opportunities in Chicago and not join us and have regrets. And so he had let me know he had just received an offer from a company that is really dear to me. Can I mention the name?
Of course.
It was Talk. It's Brian Fitzpatrick, and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, it was kind of like gut-wrenching because I really wanted this candidate, but if this person was to go anywhere, I'd love to see him with Fitz. So he ended up going there because it was a much smaller team.
Got it.
And he wanted to experience
just
that.
From a stage perspective.
Totally.
You talked a lot, Lisa, about passive candidates. You also do consider actively looking candidates?
Oh gosh, you can't be so arrogant to think that like I can find every great person there is to work at Signal. So hi Sam.
Got it. Yeah, I understand. Got it.
Yeah.
And last question on the recruiting process. From a compensation philosophy perspective, we don't need to get into numbers, but do you have a compensation philosophy of where you kind of want to be relative to other developers? Do you try to be at a certain percentile? Do you try to be average and then use the strong culture to make the difference? or do you slightly overpay or even underpay? Do you know have a philosophy about it?
We don't underpay. That's not good. You don't want people to come into a role feeling depleted
Yeah.
or like you've taken something from them. So we start talking about compensation from the first time we meet,
Got it.
and I really try to make it a comfortable talk. A lot of people going through the job hunt are afraid that we're using that discussion to exclude them.
Yeah.
And I try to explain, if you are getting coffee at Botras or Starbucks, you don't just look at the barista and hope that they're going to intuit what you want.
Yeah.
I want to support you. And I really try to set it up as I'm looking out for you as much as I'm looking out for the company. Let's have an honest discussion. And so if somebody is making $300,000, I can't pay them that. I'm going to say that and
Yeah.
end the talk for them there. But I'm
Yeah.
also going to give people the opportunity as adults to make their own decision.
Got it.
So if you say you're making $300,000, I'm like, hey, we can't pay that. This is more what we're able to do.
So
If that's something
yeah.
you're interested in, we'll continue. If you're not, I'm not wasting your time.
So I think the important point there is you're having those discussions very early, unlike some companies where it's a last minute discussion. You've invested all this time only to find out there's an ugly surprise. Either the compensation is too low, too high, etc.
Exactly. It's something, if you're going to have a good, solid relationship with someone, you have to discuss the hard things up front.
Yeah.
And I understand that if you're just starting out building your team, it might feel uncomfortable, but you're going to save yourself time and you're going to go far in establishing trust and goodwill.
Great. So last question, last advice to an entrepreneur, a founder who's building a company.
Okay.
What is the single biggest or most important thing that you've learned from doing this for years now in terms of building a healthy and vibrant culture that attracts A players, that just sucks them in like a black hole?
Oh gosh, we didn't even get to talk about our culture and some of the things that drive.
Maybe we'll set up another conversation.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Just the single biggest thing that helps you draw people in throughout this process. There must be something that you feel that you've learned that founders and entrepreneurs just have to learn how to do.
I know you're going to want to hurry, and you're going to feel the rush to hire to get things done. The best thing that I think we did as a company is when Eric and I agreed we weren't going to just hire to get bodies in the door.
Right.
It was hard for Mike Sands at first to hear this from us, but now he gets it.
Yeah.
He knows that it might take a little longer, but he understands that the type of people we bring in, the impact that they've made technically, and the impact we've made on their careers is huge. And it's not that we take so long to hire people. Our process is a little different. In January, we were taxed with hiring. Mike's like, I want 6 people in the next 6 months. Well, I hired 6 really amazing senior engineers in 6 weeks, in addition to all my other duties. And now we're back. We're able to hire some more developers. We just had 2 people accept, one on Friday, one this morning, and I've got 3 interviews this week, and I think I'll be done hiring, fingers crossed, for the rest of the year.
So, but it is a hire slow, fire fast, and I'm guessing you don't have to fire many because you're doing so much work up front.
Exactly.
Right. So it sounds like your advice is it's time front loaded, right?
It is.
You're saving yourself time in the recruiting process by front loading time and investing time with candidates. You have a much higher yield percentage of people that accept.
Yep.
Which means you don't have to restart the whole process.
Exactly.
And you're not firing people because you don't have a lot of mishires or misculture matches because, again, you're front loading that time investment.
You say it so much better.
Well, it's a constant pattern or theme from what you've said that's been key to your success. I think the challenge, it's easier said than done, right? Because for a founder or entrepreneur who's already working 100 hours a week, who's pulling their hair out, doing a million things, raising money, et cetera, what you and I are kind of saying is invest a lot of time doing this. And the natural response is, where do I find that time? And I guess, I don't know about you, but my feeling is, how could you not find that time? This is the single most important thing.
Exactly. People are what make your company. And I think it's really easy when you're trying to acquire funding, clients, to forget that people are what make your organization. And as cheesy as it sounds, it really is the people who make our company. I mean, without these amazing humans who work with us at Signal, we would be nothing.
Yeah.
So if you are a founder or if you are a CEO or CTO who's trying to get things done, maybe you find someone who can do hiring with you part-time. Maybe look for someone who shares your values and is excited about hiring engineers and about building a team more than recruiting.
Yeah.
Even. There's so much more I would tell you, but I don't want to take up your
No,
time.
this has been great, and maybe we will have another discussion about the culture and retention, which is an equally important piece, because if the bathtub has a leak in the bottom, this recruiting doesn't help.
Oh, and seriously, some of the things we do to retain people are what draw people in.
Good. So let's
this week, so you'll have to check them.
So let's save it for part 2. So Lisa, thank you so much for making the time. How can people learn more about Signal or get in touch?
Okay, so if you want to learn more about Signal, you can go to our website. It's signal.co, not .com, and you can always write me at lisa@signal.co if you have questions about building teams. As long as you don't make me talk on the phone, you for coffee, we can Skype or we can email, just no phone.
Great. At least you're honest about it.
Oh my God, I'm so horrible on the phone. Jeff, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about our team.
Thank you to you and to Sam for joining us today, Lisa.
He takes all the credit. He's still down below. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.
Okay.